Hello and welcome to Reef Talk. I'm Scott Anderson with Mile High Reefers. I'm here with Patrick from Patrick's Dive and Reef and Steve from Rotter Tube Reef. And today we're going to talk about reef tank maintenance and kind of go over what each of us are doing to maintain our tanks. So let's start with Patrick. Patrick, what are you doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to keep your tank looking good?
Okay, so I suppose we'll start with daily. Daily, I have to dose my Nopox. I'm using the Red Sea Nopox for carbon dosing. So
Oh,
I
nice.
manually I manually dose that. I don't have an automatic doser. It's no problem. I just do it when I'm feeding. So
How are you
um,
liking that no pox? I've heard good things.
yeah, it works really well. It's keeping my nitrates nice and low. The only thing is that you really have to have your skimmer working really well for it to work properly. So I do that daily. Maybe every couple of days, then I'll clean the glass with my magnet cleaner. And then every couple of days as well, I'll siphon the bottom of my tank because, as you know, I'm running
Yeah.
bare bottom, so I'll siphon out the detritus from the bottom of the tank every couple of days. Um, Also every couple of days, I change out my filter floss from my overflow just to get rid of the detritus that builds up there. And then we would be into probably weekly maintenance or fortnightly maintenance where I do a water change every 2 weeks. I do about 10% every 2 weeks. And I think that's kind of it. Like there's always something to do on the tank. Like there's always something to tinker with underneath, make sure the skimmer's working properly, make sure all the pumps are running properly. You know, the power heads have to be cleaned every now and again. Sometimes I might do it every week. Sometimes I might forget about them for a few weeks. But there's always something to do on the tank, I find. And I kind of just find an excuse to do a little bit of work on the tank as well. So I don't mind doing the maintenance at all.
So for your daily, are you kind of just checking over the system daily to make sure everything is functioning properly?
Yeah, yeah. Every morning or evening, depending on the day, I'll open up the stand and have a look at everything. Make sure all the pumps are working properly. Make sure the heaters are working properly. The skimmer's working as effectively as it can, and yeah, just check a little check on everything. It only takes 5 minutes every day. I just do it at the same time as when I'm going to feed the fish. So you got to do that every day. So we might as well take the extra 5 minutes to check on these other things.
I think yeah, I think that's actually like one of the most important things you can do to keep a good reef tank is to do that.
Mm,
I
yeah,
mean, one thing can fail, you're not going to catch it for a few days if you're not sitting there looking under that stand. I think that's hugely important.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Steve, what are you doing for your maintenance schedule?
Let's see. Daily, like you guys said, excuse me, daily, I just kind of check things over. When I get home from work, I'll just, look, feed the fish right away. They know when I get home. They'll all school together in the corner waiting for their food. At that time, I'll just, open up, kind of just check things out, look at the hoses. Like Patrick said, 5 minutes or not even.
Yep.
Um, that's really it. Just look for anything out of the ordinary. I'll check my protein skimmer. Just give everything a quick look over. It takes, a few seconds. Make sure it's skimming, make how I want. I like to keep the bubbles, the skim right underneath the cup. Just stuff like that. So really, the thing that I have on a schedule is really like a weekly thing, and I do
Okay.
a weekly water change on my 125 gallon. Um, you can go a couple weeks if you've got really good biological filtration, and I do. But I just do a weekly water change just because I like having the water refreshed, and I do a 10-gallon every week. So what I'll do usually Thursday or Friday is I'll start filling the Rubbermaid container with pure water from my RODI unit. And once that water is filled, it shuts off at the 10-gallon mark. I've got a pre-drilled hole in the Rubbermaid, and it shuts off automatically with 10 gallons. Then I've got a power head in there, and I turn that on and just let the water aerate for a few hours. I'll throw my salt mix in there. I'm using Reef crystals. Well, I was using Reef crystals. Now I'm just using the non-Reef crystal. Instant Ocean works great.
Yep.
So I'll let that aerate and stir with the power head for about 12 hours. And then by the next morning, Saturday morning, it's ready. So I'll do the water change Saturday or Sunday. So today is Sunday. Hey, I didn't do it yet, so I'm going to do it when we're done with the talk here. Then what I'll also throw in the Rubbermaid container.
So real quick, Steve, I think you're making a huge point where you're waiting like 12 hours
Right.
after you've mixed up your salt.
Yeah.
I know this is one of the mistakes I made early on as a reefer.
Me
I
too.
would mix up my salt, and then within 20 minutes, I was doing
Yep.
my water change, and it
Yep.
doesn't get time to dissolve in properly, heat up properly, or anything. So I think that's one thing that new reefers need to be aware of. Make your salt up like the night before you want to do your water change. Obviously, emergencies are a different story, but
Right. No,
It,
that's
it
exactly
does.
right.
I think it depends on the type of salt you use as well. I'm using the Red Sea Coral Pro salt,
Okay.
and their recommendations are to mix it up and not mix it for more than 4 hours.
Ah,
really,
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
So you
good
gotta
point.
get it into your tank. Yeah.
Well, good. I thought about trying that. I thought about going to the Red Sea because I've heard nothing but rave reviews. I mean, I'm very happy with the Instant Ocean Reef crystals and non-reef crystals. I'm just using the regular, plain, cheaper Instant Ocean, and it's awesome. It works great. But I've
Yep.
thought about trying what you're using there, Patrick, and I've heard really great things. I was just curious. I might move on to that, and I'm curious. I want to try it out. So that's good to know. 4 hours, so I could literally mix it and then later that night do it. But yeah, I was doing the same thing when I started out. I was literally putting it in within, an hour of mixing it up, and even if it's all dissolved, you still don't want to put that new fresh salt water in your tank. I forget the term, but the salt needs to settle, not dissolve, but settle and mix in properly because
Yeah.
it goes through a process because you can actually burn your fish.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that it's properly aerated and the salt is, I cannot remember the term, but anyway, you want to wait 12 hours roughly. So I do that. The power head is still on, and the salt has been long dissolved. It's ready to go. So once I do my 10-gallon water change, before I do the water change, I've got that same power head connected to a hose. That's what I use to get the water out of the Rubbermaid container. I don't use the 5-gallon jugs anymore. I'll scrape down the glass with my flipper scraper to get the algae and coralline algae off, let it flow through the tank. At that time, I'll put the power head in my main aquarium and suck 5 gallons out into a jug, another 5 gallons out into a jug, or I'll just put a little power head inside my sump and I'll vacuum out my sump. It gets rid of 10 gallons of water, and it cleans out your sump of all the little detritus and things that might be in your sump. So I'll rotate every other week. My sump right now looks pretty good, so I'll probably just, get it out of the display tank. Once I do my 10-gallon water change, if I'm in the mood, I'll vacuum the sand using the technique that I did a video on, and there will be a link to that in the description. After that, I just feed the fish. I'll give them a little feeding, kind of calms them down because they like to hide when I do a water change. Nothing scary. I'm not causing massive bubbles or anything, but I like to give them a little bit of nori, and that's really all I can think of doing. I don't know if I mentioned it. I forgot, but no, I did not. When I do my water change and I'm making my water, I don't really need to do this because my calcium levels are always pretty good, like 400, 420, something like that. I will dose a quarter cup of calcium crystals from Bulk Reef Supply in with my salt as it's mixing and churning with that power head, because I don't have a lot of corals, but I have an awful lot of coralline algae, which I love. That's the purple in your tank on your rocks and everything. and that uses a lot of calcium. So I want to maintain that and build it up. So I'll dose a quarter cup of calcium crystals weekly or bi-weekly. What else did I want to say? I forgot. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, the nori. You know how people are using clips for the nori? Just as a side note, is I don't use clips. I just break off a strip of the nori, and I'll just hold my hand in, and the fowlery tang comes right up to it, and he eats it right out of my hand. The other half of the nori that's left, I'll just let the water saturate it, and I'll just break it apart like this. And a lot of people are probably saying, oh, no, it's going to pollute your tank. No, it doesn't, because I've got like 6, 7, 8 tangs in there, and they all swim around. They like the challenge. You know, it's kind of like they're going after something live in the ocean.
It's a frenzy.
It is a frenzy, and it's a little game for them. I'll put the pumps on. I'll leave the pumps on, but I always turn the MP40s on for the feeding time, so they're blowing at like 10%, 20% power, and they love it. It's like a little challenge game for them, and the nori is pretty much all gone. What isn't gone, there's a bunch of particles left in the aquarium, and it just gets picked up by the starry blenny or whoever wants it an hour or two later on. So some of it gets picked up by the protein skimmer, but most of it is eaten by the fish. So I don't use clips. I just do that for the nori. It's awesome, and it's awesome to watch them do it. As far as and then also what I do with the weekly water change, when I did have a foam block, I would take the foam block out, throw it in the Rubbermaid container, wheel it into the laundry room, and rinse it out under just tap water. It's fine. I would rinse it out really well and there's a lot of detritus and uneaten food in that thing, and then I would just throw that back in the sump when I was using it. But that's it. That's what I'm doing. Just really using the flipper to clean the glass, and every 2 weeks clean the top of the sand bed, and weekly water change of 10 gallons. That's all I'm doing.
How are you liking that flipper, Steve?
It's awesome. It's really good. It's really good. Because I would get some green algae that I could not get off with my mag float, and then there was some coralline algae on the glass. I was using a metal paint scraper.
Hand scraper?
And
yeah.
It did not scratch my glass, and it was not that sharp. But it was really hard to get, you stick your arm in it. So I've got the coralline algae on the glass, and now with that flipper, you go over it a few times because it's difficult to get off, but it gives you a little bit of a workout because it's really on the glass, but it works great. I'm very happy with it.
But wait till you get all that stuff off and you're just kind of doing it daily. It won't even be a workout at that point.
Yeah. So I still don't know. Maybe you do. Another thing with that flipper, I don't leave it attached to the glass with the magnet because it's got a blade on it that is not sharp. When I'm done cleaning the glass, it's out of the tank and it's underneath in the cabinet because I don't want the water to affect or tarnish or corrode or rust the blade. I've heard that it can keep that blade living longer if you don't keep it in the water. But Scott, there's like a $38 flipper which I bought, and then there's like an $80. Do you know what the difference is between the two? I mean,
so that's the
crazy.
max.
What does that do? Why do you need that?
It sounds crazy. It's about twice the size of the regular flipper.
All right.
And the strength of the magnets in there is insane. I don't know what they're doing to get their magnets so strong, but I've got 1/2-inch glass, and it sticks really hard to that 1/2-inch glass. It is a tough magnet. It's rated up for like a 1-inch tank, so it is really badass.
Okay, that's awesome. So I don't really need that then.
No, for your glass thickness, it's not a big deal. For people with big, thick glass or acrylic, it's absolutely necessary.
Well, one thing I wanted to add with that flipper that I noticed is when I'm scrubbing that glass, going over the coralline algae 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, whatever, if it's really on there. Sorry. You might hear a slight scrape sound, and that's because you just lift it off the glass a little bit, and you can see inside your tank there's 1 or 2 bits of sand on it. So make sure you just kind of lift it off. the magnet is strong enough that when you lift it off just a bit,
Yeah.
shake it a little bit so the sand falls out because you don't want to scratch your glass. So that's just something to be aware of because it does happen, especially when you get closer to the sand bed. And also, I always keep away from the corners because you don't want to scratch off the epoxy.
Yeah.
But that's all I'm doing. It's really pretty simple maintenance. It takes me about, 10 minutes, unless, of course, you leave the hose someplace where it shouldn't be and it starts to back siphon and your floor gets soaked. Have towels on hand. Ask me how I know this.
How do you know this, Steve?
Because it goes from 10 minutes to like 45 minutes. It's not cool.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, for you.
Don't act. I'm not going to act like I haven't done it. Yeah.
That's why it's awesome to have a sump in your basement on concrete like what you've got. That's awesome.
Doesn't mean I haven't spilled a bunch of water upstairs either. I think that's part of reefing.
Yeah, definitely.
So
what do you do for your maintenance, Scott?
So for my maintenance, daily I go down and top the water off. I used to have an auto top off that uses the float style auto top off, and I got away from that because it kept getting coralline algae or something else that would stick it open and it would run the basin dry. So I just got away from that. My system's really easy. I just got a valve I open and it tops it off. Obviously, I could go get one of the new like optical Tunzi units or something, which is probably more effective than me doing it. It would do a little better job of keeping the water level stable, and it's probably less likely to screw up and forget to shut it off because I'll turn it on, let it start filling up, look at other stuff, and overfill it a little. But the thing I like about not having the auto top off is it literally forces me to go down in the basement every day and look at everything. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of one of those jobs that I have to do, which gets me down there looking at stuff. So while I'm there, I'll go ahead and check out my heater. I'll make sure temperatures are right. I'm going to check the calcium reactor, make sure it's running properly, do all that kind of stuff. And I'm big on just making sure that that's going on. I've always got my I've always got my RODI unit topping off the RODI container. So I've always got 30 gallons of RODI laying around. With my mixing setup I've always got salt water on hand. So I just mix it up every time I'm out, which is going on a lot right now with my QT thing I got going on. So right now I'm actually having to do a water change about every 2 days on my QT to keep that ammonia low. It's painful, but until that biological system gets back in there, that's what I got to do.
Why don't you throw some of those Marine Pure balls in there or something?
Well, what I've got
throw them in your sump for a month or so, and then
what I've got is I've got the AquaClear on the back, and the AquaClear has a sponge in it, okay. And then it's also got ceramic media, and I put extra ceramic media in there, but it's got to go through that whole nitrogen cycle, right? So I'm up because I had marine velvet and I let everything dry out and I killed everything in that tank. I have to reestablish that nitrogen cycle. So next time around, it's going to be perfect. But right now, this is the way I got to do it until all the bacterial colonies build back up. So that is what it is. It's painful. I know why people hate QT, which is why I'm huge on having a sand bed and the AquaClear filter and protein skimmers and all that in there.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, and that's why I'm glad I threw my Marine Pure block in my quarantine that used to be in my sump of my main tank, because now literally, like, I check the ammonia levels and they go up. You got to do a water change every day, but after a week of that Marine Pure block being in there, I tested no ammonia. I mean, it's so I'm not doing sand bed, but the Marine Pure block I threw in the quarantine, and it's great. And then you brought up something I forgot to mention on mine with the auto top off. I don't use an auto top off water. I just keep like 1 or 2 jugs of water with no salt underneath my cabinet. So, like, when I do my quick once over, like Patrick said, 5 minutes a day, that's one of the things I do. I forgot to mention. I'll check the water level, and throw a gallon of water in there, and it's not going to swing the salinity much. I usually do like a gallon and a half a week. I'm topping off. I do it manually. People are like, oh, you should do an auto top off unit. It's less to deal with. Yeah, I don't want to deal with certain things, but when I'm feeding my fish daily, I can just take a quick glance and say, oh, my water level's a little low. Bing, 10 seconds, and you're done. So it's less money, it's less electric, it's less clutter in my. I don't have to deal with it. Just keep a gallon jug underneath there and top it off, and I'm done. I also don't dose anything other than the calcium in my Rubbermaid container once a week or once every 2 weeks. I forgot to mention that about the auto top off.
Well, the other thing that's doing for you is because you have to get under there to manually top it off, it's forcing you to get under the cabinet to look and see how things were going. Because I know when I had an auto top off, I was really bad about checking on everything because it automatically takes care of itself, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of a nice bonus there.
Yeah. So, the things like that you can not spend money on, and you can do it manually. And people are like, oh, I got it. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention too. I also don't have a carbon reactor. I did. I got out of it, and I was going to mention this during the last show of equipment we use. I just throw carbon in a bag and put it in my sump. I know that it does better when it's in a reactor, but I put the carbon in a bag and I just throw it in the sump. I'm using the Carbon XO by Bulk Reef Supply, and stuff is awesome. And they ran tests and they proved that it will work just as well in a bag, just takes maybe an extra day. Who cares? So I'll throw that in the sump. So that got rid of a reactor, extra hosing, and less power consumption. So there you go. So I'll throw the bag in there with fresh carbon every 2 weeks. I know that it's only good for like a few days, but once the carbon is expired, it expires. It won't affect your tank. I'll just throw a new bag every 2 weeks. I don't care. I'm not going to do it every 3 days. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to interject there.
I do the same with carbon. I just throw in a bag of carbon into the sump every now and again. I wouldn't change it every 2 weeks. I'd put it in maybe for a week or two and then take it out and then put another one in a couple of months later. That's all I really do for carbon.
Oh, just once every couple of months?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So it just cleans your water, gets rid of the whatever toxins you may have, and then after that time you're just done. And you only do it every couple of months?
Done. Couple of months, and it seems to be working fine. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll try that because I was doing it like once or twice a month. Maybe I'll just do the once a month thing or try every couple of months. That's good. Yeah.
And it saves money on carbon as well.
Yeah, that's a good point because if you are cleaning the toxins out of your tank and they're pretty much done, yeah, you're pretty much good to go, I guess, for another couple of months. That makes sense. It's not like you have to keep doing it.
So
unless you have an anemone issue or something like that, or you've got some coral issues attacking each other.
Well, so that's kind of where I do things a little bit different is I have every 3 or 4 days, I'm changing out my carbon. I've switched it up, and this is still on the experimental side. I'm not ready to fully recommend it to anybody, but I got my carbon in my rotor tube. So I've got the really big clear rotor tube, and I've got I've gone to the bigger sponge block, just because it flows better. Not that there's anything wrong with the other stuff, but I've gone to the bigger one because it's nice and thick. And then what I've done is I've put the carbon bag underneath that. So then you've got the filtration of the carbon bag itself, plus the carbon is getting all of the water coming out of the tank. So every bit of that water that comes out of the tank has got to go through carbon.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world. I've got a lot of good-sized leathers in my tank, which produce toxins. As far as I know, there's no good way to test for it. So I'm just a big believer of keeping the carbon in there to keep any chemical warfare issues down. It also prevents the water from stinking. I also don't do a lot of water changes. I am right now because of that quarantine.
Hmm.
But since I don't do water changes, it's a good way to keep my water quality down. And I think that's some of the difference between the way I keep it and the way you two are. You two are doing the water changes on a pretty regular basis, where I'm doing a water change for quarantine purposes only, really. Um,
That's a really good point you brought up, and I agree with. I think that your way is better with the what you're doing with carbon, because what you said is key, where all the water has to flow through it, and it does, because if that water's
mhm.
coming out of your return, it's all being met with that carbon, and it's going into your sump. Whereas mine, Patrick's, the water's flowing, and not all of it's going through the bag of carbon. Some of it's bypassing it, going into the protein skimmer, going back into the last chamber. So, I've been thinking of a way to have all the water flow through my bag of carbon. I haven't put it in my rotor tube because I've got the 2-inch wide one. I'm going to experiment, maybe put the carbon bag in there. Yours is the 3-inch, so you've got
Yep.
a lot of room. But yeah, that's going to be key. Even with a reactor, I think the way you're doing it is better, because not all the
Oh
water
yeah,
is
yeah.
going to flow through the reactor. It's going
I'm
to get,
getting
it's going to be caught through that main overflow.
I'm getting 50 to 100 times through it. But
Yep.
what I think is really important is where I believe my toxins are really produced is the display upstairs, and that's what's being forced to go
Yep.
through it.
Yep.
The other thing is carbon's only good for 3 or 4 days. Well, I have to clean out my rotor tube every 3 or 4 days. So it's the perfect timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the clear one. I can't recommend the clear one enough. It is awesome
Good. I'm glad it's
because you
working.
can actually see it, right? I mean, I can actually see the water flowing through. And if it's got good flow through it, I don't worry about it. When I start seeing that it's not flowing as well, then I know it's probably time to clean it out. Or if I'm going on like a week and I need to
Right.
and I need to switch my carbon out. But basically the rotor tube needs cleaned the same time the carbon needs switched out.
Right.
So it's working out perfect so far.
Good.
So
I'm gonna try that in mine, but you know what? I might, when I brought this up in the last show we did, maybe I'll just try. Now it won't be as good as what you're doing, but maybe instead of in the sump, maybe I'll throw that bag of XO carbon, which I can't recommend enough, in my overflow chamber. I know I have 2 overflow chambers. I'll just throw it in one of the overflow chambers. I think that might be better than in the sump. Who knows?
yeah, as
Might
long as
work,
it's,
yeah.
as long as it's getting good flow over, I
Yeah.
think they'll be fine.
Right. Now, and Patrick, you got the one chamber, so you'd actually have that'd be better for you than me, because one of my chambers wouldn't be getting it unless I throw 2 bags in, but one in each.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So yeah, I'll try that. I think I'm gonna do that from now on, and then maybe try doing the rotor tube or something like that. Throwing it in the rotor tube.
So then, like every week, so far I'm vacuuming out my frag tank, and I'm using my rotor tube that I turned into a vacuum. I know when I first did that, it made you cringe a little, Steve, but I've got to say that thing
We
is
had put all the crap in the sink, right? Where
yeah,
right?
it is
Yeah.
absolutely
And-
brilliant.
And Patrick, I
Um,
saw that in yours too. When you're cleaning your tube,
Yeah.
I saw your dishes on the left side, and I saw your. I'm like, note to self: never eat over Patrick's if you're in Ireland.
but but yeah, so that thing's working brilliantly. It's allowing me to vacuum it without taking large amounts of water out of my tank, um, because of kind of how I did things. It's taken a while to get that tank settled to where I'm not growing lots of algae in it. So I'm working on it weekly, and the amount of algae being produced is going down dramatically. But I'm able just to sit there and vacuum as long as I want with that rotor tube vac, and it gets a lot of it off there, and it's really working well for me. So that's part of my weekly schedule. Um, like I said, water changes are kind of related to quarantine at this point. I just don't do them.
Mm.
I've got my nitrates being taken care of. by the biopellets. I've got carbon pulling chemicals out of there. I've got a calcium reductor putting calcium alkalinity and micronutrients in the tank. So that pretty well takes care of itself. So it's just weekly are kind of the bigger project things that I start doing, or monthly are the bigger project things that I start to do.
Dosing for me is a hassle, and I don't really need to because I don't have corals anywhere near what you've
Yeah.
got. So
Yeah.
luckily, I don't have to dose. Luckily, my weekly water changes replace the trace elements that may be missing. It gets the magnesium and the calcium up and all that. Water changes will do that. Um, so, but you have to, and I would lose track of that, and I might forget, but then that's when you have to do the auto dose units.
Yeah.
Yeah, for dosing, yeah, most of my dosing is just done by my water change every couple of weeks, in terms of bumping up the calcium or the magnesium or whatever else might take a bit of a dip. Um, I would dose in a bit of calcium and a bit of alkalinity every now and again if I notice that it's dropped for some reason. But I think most of the time it's just my water changes that keep the levels up there for me, because I don't have a whole lot of stony corals in there, so they're not
Yeah.
using up a whole lot at the moment.
That reminds me, if my elk is a little low, I don't know if you guys knew this, maybe you did. Um, I keep baking soda on hand underneath my aquarium because dosing baking soda, I forget the exact amount, just a little bit, like I'm doing like a tablespoon if needed. Dosing baking soda brings up your alkalinity, keeping your salt, your salinity level where it should be 1024 to 1026. Um, Keeps your magnesium up. So there's a little side tip for those of you who don't know.
So you were saying earlier that you add calcium to your salt mix when you mix it up.
Hmm.
And then you also said you're just using the regular instant ocean. Do you
Right?
think there'd be any benefit to going back to the reef crystals? Do you think that'd be enough to keep you from having to add the calcium to the mix?
I don't know. Um, I don't know because I didn't notice. I don't know if it's my imagination, but it seems like my corals are a little happier when I don't use the reef crystals. I know that's
Hmm.
weird, but when I
Yeah.
just use the standard instant ocean, everything seems to be like better. I can tell the difference. Not like they're dying when I use reef crystals, but it just seems like the star polyps are more full and flowing. So that's a good question. I don't know. I could go back and try it, but really, to be honest, for me, I didn't see any difference, and
Okay.
I'm saving like $18, and I'm getting a
S-
box of Instant Ocean from Amazon, and they do free shipping. You don't have to load it in your car. It just shows up on your porch. The only one who
Yep.
suffers is the mailman.
Delivery guy. Yep.
So quite honestly, hey, better him than me. Um, so that's all I'm using, and I take the bags out and I put them in my Instant Ocean plastic container that I kept. So it's cheaper. I'm not spending much. I think I'm doing like $42 free shipping on a 200-gallon box. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I on Foster's and Smith, I get a 200-gallon box of reef crystals for right at $50. It comes free shipping. So
Yeah.
that's the way I've been doing it.
Now I know that you get what you pay for, or whatever, and Red Sea is supposed to be the best, right? Now
Yeah.
Patrick's using that, and I really thought about. I am gonna try it, like a month's worth to see if there's a difference after about a month. I do want to try that out.
So one thing I've heard is that tanks seem to stress out when you change salt mixes. So, in the interest of consistency, I've started using reef crystals 2, 3 years ago at this point, and I've
Hmm.
just stuck with it. I haven't tried messing around with it. I just wanted to keep stability. So I haven't tried enough just because I'm chicken.
Yeah. Well, I would introduce it slowly. Just like
Yeah.
changing your dog's diet if you're going from one food to another. Like I would do like start at maybe 1 week. I would do like 30% reef crystal, 70% instant ocean, maybe another week, 50-50, the next week 60-40. To the point where one water change is nothing but the Red Sea salt, which still most of your tank is going to be instant
Right.
ocean. So probably over like a few months' time, all your aquarium would be all
Yeah.
of Red Sea, which I think that would be the fair test. You really couldn't
Yeah.
tell what's going on probably for a few months. But so Patrick, what did you use before the Red Sea salt? And do you see a difference?
No, I actually started with the Red
Oh,
Sea
okay.
coral salt. It was the one that was recommended to me, and I went
Okay.
with it. There was the price difference between that one and the regular Red Sea salt wasn't too much of a difference. So I said I'd go with the better one. So
Okay.
I've used that all along.
Yeah, I'm curious. Now my instant ocean non-reef crystals, it dissolves pretty quick when you put it in the
Yeah.
water first. Of course, it's going to be really cloudy. You can't see through the water, but with the power head in there, to be honest, after about like 10 minutes, it's crystal clear. I mean, there's no issues with that. So it's a great salt. I really recommend it. You save a lot of money. I've just been curious on the Red Sea salt, which is why I want to try it, and I will eventually. It's especially then what you can do is use like the uh, cheaper salt, like what I'm using. I hate to say cheaper because it's really good. The Instant Ocean
Right.
non-reef crystals for your quarantine tank. Even keep the salinity a little lower because I've had it as low as 1.018 for the fish, and they do fine. Less salt is also more oxygen in the water. They do fine with that. So you could save money by using the Instant Ocean and less salt in your quarantine tank, and then use the Red Sea for your main tank. That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking about doing.
And really, I've been using reef crystals for years. I have no problems with it. I don't even really have a reason to change other than
Right.
curiosity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, years of reef crystals have worked for me. I've got no reason to think that there's anything wrong with it at all.
Maybe you wouldn't have to dose if you got the Red Sea, maybe. For the
I,
coral
I,
mix.
I think I'd have to get rid of the stony corals and the clams to not have to dose.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, maybe you dose less. I don't know because I know that you do
Yeah.
have to with what you've got, which is one reason why I don't have
Yeah.
a lot of corals. It's just more upkeep and stress.
Softies, Steve, I'm telling you, you'll
Yeah.
love them.
But it's more work.
No, seriously, once you put it like a softie in there, just next time you go to the reef store, pick up a leather or something.
Oh yeah, I will. I will.
Yeah, it's no work. I'm telling you, they
I
just crack.
I do want the leather, and I do want to get a zoanthid. They just look awesome. But I'm gonna throw those guys in a Rubbermaid container with a little heater for a month just to make sure that there's no damn ick on it or anything. Maybe 6 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, and then some Coral RX or some
Right, of course.
prime or something to make sure you're not getting zoanthid eating nudibranchs or something stupid
Right.
like that.
Dip them in the Coral RX.
Yep.
Throw them in the Rubbermaid container. 6 weeks. Just
Yep.
let them sit, and do that. Keep them by the window. I don't have a light for that, so I'll probably just keep them with a little heater by the window so the sun hits them. I think that might be good enough, right?
It'd be a cool trial.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I'd be interested to see it.
All right, so there's a video. There's another video.
A sunlit. You can even get like a cheap 10-gallon and try that sunlit. That'd
Yeah.
be pretty cool.
I just go and get like a Rubbermaid container, shallow one, like 4 inches tall from Home Depot.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep it by the windowsill in the bathroom, and the sun hits that for like 12 hours a day. So, yeah, right, there's no lighting except the sun and the ocean. So why wouldn't it work? I don't know.
I'm almost wondering if it's going to be too bright because natural sunlight is crazy bright.
Yeah. So I'll let you guys know that might be a good test. So there's going to be my quarantine. It'll cost like maybe $5 for the container, and I'll throw a cheap heater in there.
Heater and a power head to keep the water circulating. That's probably about all you need.
Yeah, a really small
Piece of live rock to keep any
I'll keep
treats down.
like a really weak power head that I use for like cleaning out the sump, just to like indirect flow, and that's all you need. It'd be like a little school experiment.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
Really cool.
there you go. Well, I think that's about it for this show. You guys have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I reckon that's about it.
Yeah,
Nah,
touched
just
on
thanks for
maintenance.
watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. As usual, every Sunday Reef Talk. Make sure you check out Patrick's channel, Patrick's Dive and Reef. Of course, Mile High Reefers.
Thank you.
And then, mine, Rotter Tube Reef. Read the description below, please. Subscribe to our channels if you dig them. We all have different things to offer. And, of course, as always, do what you think is best. Take the knowledge that we're giving you guys and just do what you feel is best in your reef aquarium. So until next time, we'll see you guys on Reef Talk. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for watching.